The browser wars is basically a metaphorical term that refers to competitions for dominance and usage share in the web browser marketplace. So the first main browser war was between Netscape and Tor. It began in the mid-90s and lasted till about 1998, 99. So both products were descendants of Mosaic, so they had a lot of the similar features and functionality, but Netscape had gained significant grounds early on in 94 by implementing new features such as JavaScript. And since there were no standards, the company was actually implementing its own version of the same functionality. Netscape implements JavaScript. Microsoft implemented a very similar technology called JScript, which basically emulated the exact same functionality that was available in JavaScript. Microsoft continued the proprietary trend by adding ActiveX, such as I mentioned before. So the integration of adding new features in this kind of features race to market superseded fixing bugs. Web sucked for the first, good 10 years of it. New features took priority over bug fixes, resulted in unstable browsers and security holes, i.e. the broken web. So in 97, basically IE4 came out, and that had a lot of new functionality, and that really put an end to Netscape. And the reason that, there was a couple reasons that IE was able to foment such an attack against Netscape, one of which was Microsoft had all the resources. They had the money, and they owned 90% of the operating system market, okay? So they were able to actually, for everybody who was buying a new computer during the late 90s, which was most of us, this would be our first home computer and our first experience with the internet, there was little motivation to switch to an alternative browser because IE was just there. It was available for everybody. So most people were discouraged from using other products as a result of that. And so if you recall during this time, it was common to see this sort of thing as best viewed in this browser, best viewed in this browser. So Netscape was pretty slow to adapt, basically because they didn't have a whole lot of resources. And so because Microsoft was able to abuse its monopoly in the operating system market, it led to the antitrust case in 1998 where Microsoft was found guilty of basically choking the life out of Netscape. But by that time, Netscape was already dead, so it didn't really matter. Let's see. Basically, the first browser war ended in 98, thereabouts, with Microsoft real competition after Netscape had died. Netscape was later acquired by AOL for $4 billion or something. They didn't really do much with it. There's a series of mismanagement and poor decisions along the way, which kind of defeated the whole purchase there. And then this is an interesting fact that following the release of IE6 in 2001, there will not be another significant advancement in browser technology in terms of Internet Explorer until 2006. So that was a 5-year lull at which all innovation halted. Okay, so there was a number of consequences to the browser wars to this situation. We had poor standard support, which means we had a lot of proprietary features in this browser and a lot of proprietary features here. And so as a web developer, we would write code twice, essentially. So unnecessarily compact coding solutions to make it look the same in each browser. There were security vulnerabilities, and the industry innovation completely stagnated. Okay, so in the last 10 years, we basically have this second round of browser wars, okay? And mostly you can see the sort of evolution. Netscape was open sourced in 1998. We talked a little bit about open source, but if you have questions about this, let me know when we get done. So once that happened, they entrusted the source code to the Mozilla Foundation, and that eventually evolved into Firefox. Firefox was actually a branch of the Mozilla project. Mozilla was its own browser, and it didn't actually come out until 2004, but it was the precursor to all of that. So, while Internet Explorer was kind of resting on its laurels, Safari came out, Apple released that in 2003, Firefox 1 came out in 2004, Internet Explorer 7 was released in 2006, and they're finally catching up with Firefox. So when Firefox came out in 2004, if you recall, there was tab browsing, there was a search bar, and a number of other neat advancements that we hadn't seen before. So when IE7 came out in 2006, they were just catching up with a lot of those advancements. So they added tab browsing, a search bar, a phishing filter, and then a week later, no kidding, in 2006, a week later, Firefox 2 came out and upped the ante again. So they added, session restore, spell check, phishing filters, a bunch of other stuff. So again, IE is just sort of getting screwed. So in 2008, Google gets into the browser market with Chrome. IE8 came out in 2009, and again, they're just now meeting some of these really important new features that Firefox beat them to about 2 years ago. And then Firefox 3.5 was released in 2009 with full CSS3 support, and is actually starting to touch on some of the mobile technologies that we'll be leveraging in the next couple of years, like multi-touch and gesture support and stuff like that. Okay, so the result of the last 10 years worth of browser competition was increased innovation. We've seen a major expansion of technology and functionality and neat possibilities that were not available prior. Increased standard support. We'll talk a little. She's going to talk a little bit more about standards shortly, and then increased stability and accessibility and things like that. Okay, so the next version, the browser war number 3, is definitely going to be inside the mobile space. Okay, and so these are some of the main players right now in terms of mobile browsers. But make no mistake, there's like hundreds of these mobile browsers out there emerging. So while this is kind of the top dogs today, it very well may not be tomorrow. That pretty much concludes my very brief and rapid history of the web browsers and browser wars. I don't know if you guys have any specific questions.